Umaga, good evening, Nancy and Kirby.
Good evening
How are
sa US and good morning sa Pilipinas.
And awesome morning to all the people watching on the live stream in Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And most especially watching on the replay, we have a very special guest sa Araw ng Maynila. And a young Filipino historian and YouTuber. You might know him as Kirby Araullo, YouTuber. So Nancy and I will be talking about him. Paano ba nagsimula to? How did it start? What's happening with Filipino history? Not only for food, but also, general history. And we'll talk to him about Araw ng Maynila. Ano bang alam niya sa Araw ng Maynila? And and the whole story. We're so interested. And Nancy, my name is Antonias, founder of our Awesome Planet. This is Awesome Live Chat with Kirby Araullo. All right. Thank you. And we're here talking to thank you for talking to All right. So before you introduce yourself, Kirby, I'll play one video lang in your YouTube channel for those people who might be
What
familiar.
does it really mean, and how do we celebrate our own roots? Let's learn more. Mabuhay or Kapampangan Luwid kayo. Welcome back to another video. It's me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian. And if you are new to my channel, in this channel, I make videos about our people's history, our people's culture, and everything in between. So don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. It's been a while since...
All right. So we have Kirby Araullo live today, and we'll have a discussion. How did it all start? Paano ba nagsimula to, Kirby? And maybe give a background for people just to get everybody on the page. And guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to join our discussion in the comment section.
Yes, please. How did the channel start, or just the passion?
Yeah, channel start and then a passion for history.
So I've actually had my YouTube channel, not this one. I had an older one from 2005 when YouTube started. So when I was in high school sa LA, I did filmmaking, so I had to upload my projects. So I started YouTubing then. Pero I wasn't really doing, I was just doing like normal vlogging, pero hindi talaga siya tungkol sa history. It only started around, anong year ba yun? I think around 2015. So 10 years since nung first channel ko, din pala ako gumawa ng mga educational videos about history. Yeah, and it's because dito sa US, we have this Filipino youth conferences, different campuses, mga universities, where we host high school students from nearby areas for a whole weekend, like a 3-day weekend na magstay sila with us sa university, and just to encourage them to pursue higher education, and at the same time, to also encourage them to dig deeper into their Filipino roots. So may mga workshop kami na tungkol sa mga iba't ibang topics about being Filipino. Yeah, so maraming high school students ang tatanong sa akin, Kuya, anong ba pwedeng basahin na libro tungkol sa history ng Pilipinas, yung mga ganon. But then whenever they ask me, I realize na yung mga libro na may access ako sa mga library dahil nasa college ako, they don't have access to it. So I realized like, maybe I should start sharing what I know sa YouTube and see how it goes. So dun talaga nag-umpisa sa mga high school students dito sa may Northern California. Sila talaga yung una kong audience.
All right. And how's it so far talking about Filipino history in YouTube? Who are the people, who's your audience in your YouTube channel?
Noong umpisa, it was mostly Filipino-American youth. And now, nag-shift yung demographics, I think 2 years ago, 2018. Nag-shift siya now it's 60+% na taga-Pilipinas yung audience. Pati yung age, ngayon mostly between 18 to 34 years old na sila. Dati mga around 13 to 24 ganon. Ngayon 18 plus. Yeah. So sila talaga yun na yung audience ko ngayon, mostly Filipinos.
Okay, maybe can you also talk about your roots in the Philippines? When did you go to the US, and where's your roots here in Manila?
Well, I have family in Manila, pero I grew up in Pampanga, in Angeles, next to Clark Air Base. Like literally, Clark Air Base was just a walking distance from our house. So I grew up in Pampanga in Angeles City, and then I moved to California in 2004 for high school in LA, and I stayed here since. Yeah. So mostly,
Where did
pero
you stay in Manila?
Hmm?
Where did you stay when shortly in Manila?
I have family sa sa Marikina, sa um saan ba yung isa? Sa Santa Ana meron din. May mga medyo kalat yung yung mga kamag-anak ko sa Manila. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Araullo, ano yan, no? The Araullo clan.
Yes, sa Araullo side yung mga nasa Manila.
Okay. And how did your fascination for history, particularly Filipino history, started?
Good question. So nag-start talaga siya. It started when I was nung bata pa talaga ako, mahilig na ako sa history. Nung pumutok kasi yung Pinatubo noong 1991, 30 years ago. In the aftermath, yung my grandma in Pampanga, she was a tourism officer for Angeles City. So their job, Soledad Pábalan Medina. Yeah, so her job was to help uplift the spirits nung community kasi devastating nga yung pagputok ng vulkan. So we had a lot of growing up. I my nickname was her Ike, which is tail o buntot in Tagalog, or Ike in Kapampangan. So kasi lagi ako nakabuntot sa kanya sa mga events niya, sa mga programs nila. So from then, I realized that, fascinating yung history ng Angeles, in particular kasi yun yung focus nila. But then when I share it to friends, hindi nila intindihan yung mga sinasabi ko. May mga pinsan ako na sinasabi nila, gawa-gawa mo lang yan, yung mga ganon. So dun talaga nag-umpisa yung fascination ko sa history kasi na-realize ko na history is all around us. Yung mga dinadaan-daanan lang namin pag nagsisimba kami, yung simbahan na mismong kung saan ako nabinyagan, malalim yung mahaba yung history niya. So, bata pa lang, exposed na ako sa history.
That's nice. He already has a natural desire to know things. Kasi not everybody's like that.
Mhm.
Yung iba born sa history, but you were putting more color, not just dates and names. Kaya maganda. Tsaka
Thank you.
kwento, storytelling That's nice.
Salamat. Yeah. I luckily I have I belong to a family of storytellers. So bata pa lang nahasa na yung pagkikwento ko.
So other than oral history,
Mhm.
where do you get your text? What books did you read on history of the Philippines?
Marami. One of them yung kay Blair ano ba yung, why am I blanking? So marami kasi mga translations nung Spanish ng mga Spanish documents na meron sa mga library namin or sa mga grand uncles ko, meron silang mga libro na pinapahiram sa akin nung bata ako. So bata pa lang nag-uusisa na ako.
That's nice.
Oo. So ano sabi nila sa history about Araw ng Maynila? Like why is that Foundation Day of Manila 450 years ago, di ba?
So, Araw ng Maynila is the 458th anniversary nga ng tatag ng Manila as a Spanish city. So for me, it is historic kasi 450 years ago nga naging Spanish colony ang Manila. But for me, it's also a reminder na Manila has deeper roots, older than 450 years ago. Even the name Manila it predates the Spaniards. And if we really look at the history of the Philippines, yung pinakamatandang dokumento na may date sa Pilipinas, yung Laguna Copper Plate, talks about Tondo from the year 900. So that was 600 years before Magellan. So mahaba talaga or malalim talaga yung kasaysayan ng Metro Manila or yung communities around Manila Bay.
Yeah.
So for me, this is a reminder for all of us sa mga nanonood na our history doesn't really start with just the Spaniards.
Yeah.
It's important to commemorate the 450 years ago nga na naging city ang Manila officially according to Spanish books. Yeah, but for me,
sorry.
Go ahead.
With Manila? Who was trading with Manila during those times? Kasi malapit sila sa sa sea, di ba? So may
Yes.
trade.
Ang Manila Bay had the tawag ito, monopoly of trade with China during the time that the Spaniards came to the Philippines. So noong mga 1500s, nagkaroon ng, I can't remember the exact name, but nagkaroon ng ban sa Chinese trade sa China mismo. The emperor, or I believe if I'm not mistaken, it was the Ming Dynasty who instituted a ban for seafaring trade to China. But there was an exception, which is Luzon. And during that time, when they said Luzon or Lusong or Lusonggo in Chinese, it's the area around Manila Bay. So sila yung merong hawak ng monopoly ng trade with China through sea. And then dahil sila yung may monopoly, yung mga Japanese, yung mga iba pang Southeast Asian, sa atin nagpupunta para makakakuha sila ng mga Chinese goods. Yeah.
Interesting.
Pero di ba yung araw ng Maynila, it means the Spanish defeated the tribes who were in Manila. Tama
Yes.
ba yun?
Yeah, yun yung araw na nanalo nga sila or defeated the politics in Manila. Yung mga I wouldn't say, it's hard to define kasi yung political system noon sa Southeast Asia, hindi lang sa Pilipinas. So meron silang mga overlapping kingdoms, gano'n. Pero yung sa Manila, I guess, a good way to describe it would be parang city-state. So parang yung Manila was a separate city-state than Tondo, and then even Cainta, yung gano'n. And yun nga, this day, 450 years ago, when they defeated the joint forces ng Maynila tsaka Tondo.
That's what I was asking, Anton. Ano talaga yung, when you say tribe, is it a political tribe, a family tribe, a government tribe? How did that go? The word tribe.
Medyo para ba explain to? For me kasi I try to avoid using the word tribe when I describe our ancestors kasi the Western powers used it to minimize our achievements as a civilization before colonialism. So there's nothing wrong with the word itself, but when they used it back then, it was really to just minimize us na wala tayong, they even wrote na wala tayong kingdoms, yung ganon.
Para pa tayong savage pa kung sabihin mo.
Yeah. Ganun yung pagkaka-describe po, yes.
Oo. Tama. Dapat.
But for us, a lot of us grew up with that word. So mahirap minsan talagang i-shift yung mindset na ganun.
Kaya mo yun, gawin.
Pero but the kingdoms before the Spanish, are they still here? Did they survive throughout history?
Can you repeat that?
Di ba may mga tribe, hindi tribes, yung mga kingdoms or, before Spain, did they survive until today?
One example would actually be Sulu. So the Sulu Sultanate, the Sultan is still there, even though maraming medyo nagko-conflict yung may echo. So yeah, meron pa mga nagto-survive na mga na politically they're not recognized na kingdoms ngayon, pero marami pa rin na culturally nandun pa rin yung authority ng mga datu, ng mga sultan, especially sa Mindanao. But for Luzon, sila parang nag-assimilate sila sa dahil nga na-colonize na, so nag-assimilate sila sa bagong political structure ng Luzon noong panahon na yon. And that's why we actually have yung tinatawag na Principalya class nung colonial period. Yeah, so sila yung mga descendants ng mga dating datu, dating Rája ng Maynílâ, yung gano'n.
That's why. Anton, I have another question. I want to go deeper. So in Manila, in talagang old Manila, andun yung Muslim quarter, di ba, sa Quiapo. So how old was that? Kasabay ba yan nung panahon pa nila Limahong o ni Mahoma o yun? When that was established or recently na lang? Kasi malaki na yung mosque doon tsaka malaki yung community doon.
Yung Muslim community ngayon sa Quiapo, if I'm not mistaken, medyo recent na lang siya. Pero pre-colonially kasi before dumating yung actually yung pagdating ng mga Kastila mismo, Manila itself was a Muslim walled city. So yung kinakatayuan ngayon ng Intramuros was actually a Muslim walled city na nasunog na nung 450 years ago nasunog. Tapos nung ni-rebuild nila, naging Spanish city na siya.
Yeah. Interesting.
So noon pa lang
Oo.
Medyo hindi pa clear kung anong year talaga naging Muslim ang Maynila, pero for sure by 1521 or yes, even by 1521 Muslim na yung city ng Maynila. Yes.
Galing ah. Now, Kirby, what are the popular topics ba in your channel that you find, younger Filipinos are, resonating with?
Ngayon, ang today, the most popular topics would be around, well, this week, this month is around mythology kasi nga lumabas ng 13. So now people are requesting more mythology videos. Pero overall, mostly pre-colonial topics. Pre-colonial mythology, pre-colonial history, yun talaga yung naging demand ng mga audience ko sa channel ko.
Oo. So, can we talk about 13? Kasi nga, 13 is very, historic also in a sense, talking about all the aswangs and stuff. Maybe talk about it, in the point of view of your film audience also. How significant is this, and how is there really a real interest on Philippine mythology?
There is actually a big interest in Philippine mythology or anything Philippines, ang pre-colonial Philippines sa dito sa US, sa diaspora, sa mga kabataan, because they we grew up here. I mean, I partly grew up here. So partly growing up here, we were everywhere we look, we were told not to be more American, to be na marami silang even yung mga mythology na tinuturo sa amin or na natututunan namin, it's usually European mythologies and not even Asian, pero puro siya European. So a lot of Philam youth that I've met, a lot of the audience that I have, a lot of the students that I've met are really eager to learn more about our own culture back at home in the motherland. So for us, it's a big deal na merong 13 kasi one, it's Netflix, so it's a huge giant media giant na nag-decide na ponduhan nila yung ganitong project na to share our own culture kasi nga not everybody knows, not even Filipino American youth knows na, not even every Filipino youth here in the US knows na meron tayong sarili nating mythology. Yeah. So it's a big deal na meron tayong 13 sa Netflix.
Galing nga, Filipino anime. On
I think marami na yung gumagaya. So there's really a plethora of historical interests looming.
Yeah, may demand.
Oo. Dati may aswang festival pa yan sa Roa City.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of that, yes.
Yes, but the Catholic Church banned it. Because they're doing the Aswang Festival on the fiesta of the
kasabay. Kaya pala.
So, but there was an Aswang Festival and Aswang Parade. It was actually really nice. It was getting too popular. That's why it was stopped. But I guess nga with this stress and stuff. Now, I have a question on Filipino food naman. Are there a lot of interest on Filipino food? Because you cover that in your channel also. And we talk about also a lot about Filipino food history, history. And this is about Filipino Culinary DNA. What makes you interested on Filipino food or your audience, and what can we explore more in terms of the history of the food?
Well, I grew up in Pampanga, so food is everywhere. So our culture
Yes.
it revolves around food. So that's my my interest, why I'm interested in food, especially then history, then yung passion ko. So parang food history is a thing that I'm really interested in, although it's not my expertise. Yeah. What was the second part of the question?
Yeah, I mean, like, are the Filipino films, your audience, interested on Filipino food also? Parang are they looking more into it, or it's really just more of the prehistoric story of the Philippines?
Well, now that what I notice now is that marami talagang Filipino American youth na interested sa Filipino food, because yes, di ba? I'm not sure about Texas, pero when I was a teenager, marami din po, di ba? Kasi go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Continue, please.
I was just gonna say that when I was growing up, or my teenage years in LA, marami sa mga Filipino American youth na kakilala ko, they really kind of like step away from Filipino food, na hindi siya cool. But recently it's more it's more visible. So now marami ng Filipino restaurants ngayon throughout the US. Even Jollibee alone, na marami dumami bigla yung Jollibee sa US. Yeah. So meron ng resurgence ng interest ng mga Filipino youth sa Filipino food na hindi na lang siya food na pambahay lang, ganon.
Anton, pwede ko na bang i-channel si Adobo Queen?
Yes, go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, anong history ng adobo?
Oh yeah. So the name it's Spanish. Pero yung process of making the dish, it's pre-colonial. So we've had it. Actually, fun fact sa mga hindi nakakaalam, yung process ng paggawa ng adobo actually has the same pre-colonial roots as the process ng pagluto ng sisig, according to our elders. So yung pagpapaasim dun sa meat at yung balance ng saltiness tsaka ng sourness.
Yep.
Baka mali. Ano po ba yung
Ano sasabihin niya?
ano opinion niya?
May pause. Ano sabi ni Adobo Queen?
We have abundance of coconut vinegar, remember?
Yes.
When we had to preserve food. So that was one way. Adobo is a way of preserving food by cooking in vinegar.
Bago pa nagkaroon ng mga refrigerator.
Oo.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in terms of history, yung pinag-usapan nga na namin ni Nancy to, are the younger generation more looking into people who are in YouTube, no, for Filipino history than, for example, the older generation just looking up into the older generation. Di ba, Nancy? Ano bang
parang ganito ito yung a notion that older people will believe older historians. Younger people will believe younger historians. Tama ba yun? Or meron bang crossing?
May crossing din. Yeah. Pero for the most part, medyo tama naman.
Yeah, kasi you also relied on your grandmother for history, no?
Yes.
But it's good now that ang question ko is, will younger people believe you as a younger historian rather than the old dinosaurs? And what?
I don't know how to answer that. Hopefully they'll believe me. But for me, I also tell them na just because I said it, it's not, don't just take my word for it. Na they should also do their own research. Na minsan may mga nakukuha rin akong mga mali. I'm not sure if everybody would admit it, but there's no perfect historian. We would always, commit mistakes here and there. But we try our best to present the stories, the histories in the best way that we can. Pero yeah, I always encourage the younger students na nakikilala ko to dig deeper and look into the other historians din, na hindi lang basta-basta sa YouTube channel ko.
Yeah. And related to that, how do you make history sounds cool talaga? And what did you learn? Maybe you can share some tips for parents, no, teaching their younger kids. Ano bang was it about the visual? Was it about the YouTube channel, or was it about tidbits in history, or was it about you have a research na you cannot find in books? What made it cool for your audience? What did you learn?
I think through the couple of years that I've been doing history videos, the visuals actually just came in later. Nung una talaga medyo wala talagang visuals. Pero what I think for me is that what I try to do to make it more relevant to the younger audience is to share stories na hindi namin nababasa sa mga libro or hindi easily accessible, or yung mga stories na kumbaga medyo distorted siya because of colonialism. So parang hard to find topics or like different perspective, I guess what I'm trying to say. The word I was trying to look for is I present it in a different perspective from our own perspective as Filipinos. Hindi lang siya hindi lang kasi most of our history is actually recorded by outsiders. Like most of the books about Philippine history are written in English and Spanish. So a lot of it is really from their perspective. So for me, I try to try my best to see it from our own perspective, from our own ancestors' perspective. Na ano ba yung kwento? from the yeah, I try to imagine sometimes na
Nabubuli tayo nun eh. Nabully tayo nun eh when they were
Yeah.
doing history. Siyempre sila yung bida, tayo yung
Yes.
tao. But let me put it this way. I think what you would really want to say is you tickle the curiosity of your audience. Because you present something that they don't know pero meron kang twist na totoo ba? Diba?
Yeah.
So, people, especially the young ones now sa YouTube, they want to know what is true, what is not. And also you built your credibility.
Thank you.
Maybe Anton, kasi not everybody can be a historian to be believed in. I can tell you na ganito ganyan, pero sino maniniwala sa akin? Pero kailangan talaga there's credibility, and I think you built that already, Kirby. That's
Thank
why
you.
you have the audience that believes in you.
Salamat.
Diba?
How did you build it at the start pa? That credibility na historian. Kasi mabigat yun eh, di ba? When you say you're a historian, ang bigat eh.
Bata.
Yeah.
Bata ka.
Actually, it took me a while to actually say it in my videos that I'm a historian. Actually, medyo recent na lang ko na lang sinasabi na I'm a historian on my videos. When I started, I just shared the information. So yeah, it took me a while to really accept or to claim na yun nga, I'm professionally I'm a trained historian, and yeah, I think it's just being open to criticisms then, which is how I built credibility. Kasi pag may mga nagko-comment na corrections or additions sa mga sinasabi nila, I actually appreciate it and I respond to them. And I thank you for sharing, mga ganon. And sometimes I've actually corrected myself in some of the when I do the videos again. So for me, being open to criticisms then is a big part of how I try my best to stay credible.
Alam mo, people see your workspace, no? Nakikita natin ngayon. You have this sword. Ano ba yung story niyan? Do you have the sword sa Adaba?
Oh yeah. So yung itong isa that's modern kampilan. So medyo modern, hindi naman siya, medyo matanda siya sa akin, I think. Pero ano lang, modern yung pagkakagawa. Pero regalo siya nung birthday ko nung kamakailan lang. And then the other one is the Chris that is actually was given to me by my dad then on a birthday a few years ago. Yeah. So people forget na sa Pilipinas we also had, or people know when they hear the word Chris, the sword, they think of Mindanao. Or Indonesia or Malaysia, but people forget na even Luzon had our own Chris. We called it Kalis. Yeah. So we used to have it too in Luzon. And it's actually throughout Southeast Asia. So it's something that we share with the rest of Southeast Asia na kumbaga nakalimutan na. Actually, yung kwento ng mga matatanda sa Pampanga noon, when I asked them about what they know about the Chris or the Kalis, sabi nila, digging to the history of the sword, it used to be like a sword for the royalty in the Philippines. It was seen as a spiritual sword, more than it's more spiritual than practical for fighting in Luzon. So it was passed down. And it's the same culture in Bali, it's the same culture in Java, in Indonesia. Now it was seen more of a spiritual sword. But then when after colonialism, it suddenly became it became this sword na pangtabas ng palay sa Pampanga. Yun yung mga kwento matatanda. So parang nagbago daw yung use ng sword kasi nagiba na nga yung kultura. So even if you look at the paintings ng mga Filipinos noong 1800s na may mga swords pa rin sila pero western na yung design. So hindi na sila yung mga Southeast Asian na design.
Yung balisong.
Yung balisong, I'm not really sure kung kailan nag-umpisa yung balisong, but from what I know, it's a Filipino sword. Or not sword, or blade.
Dagger.
Dagger, yes.
May kwento ako, Anton and Kirby.
Go.
Ang sabi sa akin, dun sa Samar, kasi puro mga matatapang yung mga lalaki doon. When they have a duel, yung duel,
yeah.
Parang they are tied together para nakatali sila. Tapos magsasaksakan sila. Sino yung mamatay? Hello.
Totoo ba yan?
Totoo
And
ba yun?
actually,
Totoo?
I'm not sure about Samar, pero I've actually seen similar traditions sa Indonesia. So meron din silang ganun na tradition na medyo, if I'm not mistaken, binabalot sila ng parang malong or kumot na nakatali sa kanila na kailangan nilang mag-duel while tied to each other with swords.
Okay. Before we continue, Mark Manzano has a question. Possible you have a lot of books also. Are they available in the Philippines or just Amazon?
Not yet. So yung sa Amazon, almost, kailangan ko lang i-double check yung proof na I just need to tell Amazon, okay na. Pero almost on Amazon. Pero sa Pilipinas, hindi pa siya available locally. I was talking to a few possible partners a few months ago, pero hindi siya hindi siya natuloy. so yeah, hindi pa siya. Hopefully soon.
Okay. And Mark was mentioning about the Sinag animation. There's a few more animation kasi coming, 'di ba? Kamagong ni Carl by Carlo J. Marami na. And I think 13 really opened that flood, gate, no, for Filipino anime.
Yeah. Exciting.
Yeah, exciting. And we have somebody watching from Spain. Hello, Nestor.
Oh,
Can you help me
Hola.
translate? Hola. All right. So it's really interesting about Filipino history. Moving forward, what are your aspirations for the channel, or even how should the next generation appreciate our history more?
For my channel, I really don't have big aspirations, or I guess I don't have specific goals or bucket lists. I just do what I do. I do what I love what I'm doing, so I just do it and see where it goes. So I really rely mostly on my passion. Even up to now, I don't think of it as a business, even though all of other YouTubers are telling me, like, you should think of it as a business, because it is a business. For me, medyo nangibabaw pa rin yung passion. Yeah, but for our younger generation, future generations to appreciate our history is, for me, hopefully the next, the younger generation would see it from our perspectives. Kasi marami nga sa atin na we were raised na iba yung pagtingin natin sa history ng Pilipinas. So for me, hopefully the younger generation would start seeing it more from our perspective, not from the outsider's perspective that we were often taught at schools. From our education system.
Pero kahit hindi business, you were able to raise funds, di ba? For your charities. I think that was a move. Yeah.
Thank you. So dun lang ako medyo matapang na manghingi ng pera sa mga audiences when I'm asking for donations.
What was your latest call for help?
Nung typhoons last year or late last year, nung mga recent na bagyo sa Pilipinas. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's good. So, in terms, can you talk about your books? What's your parang strategy for your books, in a sense? Are you trying to make Filipino history in your own voice, or you just wanted to tell stories that people are not telling?
Mostly sharing stories that people are not usually sharing. And again, using my own voice then. So if you really read it, I hope you can hear my voice when you read it.
Do you have something there? Do you have your books there? If you can show.
Yes, I have a few of them. The recent one na natapos. So yeah, this is a coloring book version of this book.
That's nice.
Thank you. So actually, this is about the Tondo, the Tondo, what we call Tondo conspiracy minsan, and the revolt of the Lakans, the last attempt by the rulers of Manila and Tondo to kick out the Spaniards noong 1588.
Oh, ano nangyari? Pero sila yung nag-agree, di ba, to let the Spaniards create the city. What happened during that time?
Ano yan? Medyo complicated yung kwento. Hindi siya black and white na basta-basta. That's a misconception actually for a lot of us na people think na first people would say like, oh, Lapu-Lapu fought the Spaniards, and then Sultan Kudarat in Mindanao fought the Spaniards, but the rulers of Luzon accepted them, welcomed them. That's actually a very wrong way of thinking it. Because Luzon fought back, Manila fought back many times against the Spaniards, and it wasn't an easy one fight tapos talo na tapos. But yeah, ano mas nasabihin ko? But yeah, our people in Manila, Metro Manila, in Pampanga, they fought back against the Spaniards. Actually, there was this big battle in Bangkusay, or in tinatawag na Battle of Bangkusay, na meron actually 40 warships and 2,000 warriors from Bulacan, Pampanga, and Tondo na sinubukang what do you call this? They tried to stop Spaniards from invading Manila, but sadly natalo sila. Yeah, so I guess the lesson is that nung panahon na yon, medyo the colonizers used to, or they love pitting people against each other. So nung nilusob nila yung Pampanga, nilusob nila yung Manila Bay, they actually won because they had help from the Visayan warriors.
Yes.
Yeah, so nanalo lang sila kasi tinulungan sila ng mga Kabisayaan. So, and then the other way around, when the Visayas or even Mindanao would fight back against the Spaniards, they would bring people from Luzon to fight the Mindanao. So medyo pinag-aaway-aaway nila, and that's by design para hindi makapag-mount ng United Front yung mga tao sa Pilipinas nung panahon na yon. Yeah.
Is that why you think we became very regionalistic?
Partly yes, yeah. Kasi they really emphasize the differences para hindi nga sila makapag-unite until panahon ni Jose Rizal and Des Bonifacio na, hey, we have to fight together.
Yeah. Kaya rin nagkaroon ng iba-ibang adobo eh.
Yes. Iba-ibang way ng pagluluto ng adobo.
Ganun ba? Pero bakit Pampanga is the culinary center? Is that historically ang basis niyan?
Good question.
Nancy? Pero di ba galing Cebu ang mga Spaniards eh? Hindi ba dapat Cebu? Or
actually, ano yan eh?
Paano ba nangyari?
Kung sino yung una nag-claim. Totoo yun. At saka sorry to say, kung sino yung mas mayaman.
Thank you for bringing that up actually. So, nung panahon ng mga Kastila, actually Pampanga was rich. So, kasi nandun yung pinakamalalawak na palayan, malalawak na taniman ng mga crops or cash crops. So nung for the most part ng Spanish colonization sa Pilipinas, Pampanga and Central Luzon was the breadbasket. Actually, kung nag-fail ang crops ng Pampanga, Manila would be starving for months. Kasi lahat ng pagkain doon nanggagaling. So I think that's a big part why, kasi nasa kanila yung mga crops, nasa kanila yung pera. So meron mas may resources sila to experiment on food.
Dalawang forces yan eh. Yung mga landlocked na provinces, walang access sa tubig, at saka yung mga those who were by the coast.
Yeah.
So, talagang magkakaiba yung kanilang dynamics when it came to food. So yung the Pampanga, Bulacan, they use a lot of salt, sugar to preserve food.
Yeah.
And in the coastal areas, they use a lot of vinegar to preserve and to cook their food. Yun ang nangyari. So, but we have a very rich culinary DNA because of that.
Yeah.
Galing anyway, just to conclude our discussion also, I wanted to know, I know you're not, you don't specialize in food, but what do you think is the Filipino culinary DNA? Ano ba, how would you describe it? I know you grew up here in Manila, but not also in the US. So you have a really interesting point of view. How do you think about that?
For me, napaka yaman ng pagkain sa Pilipinas, or our culinary traditions is very rich. Most of the time, we're not even aware of the dishes that they cook in Mindanao, the ones they cook in the other provinces. So a lot of the times, ang alam lang natin yung mga nasa mainstream. So for me, it's very rich. It's very there's a lot of influences from our history being a center of trade for centuries. So maraming influences. Marami siyang blending ng different flavors for me. na kailangan nating i-appreciate, na kailangan nating i-celebrate.
Yes. I would like to do more research on that. That would be very interesting for the Philams. Because they're so
Yeah.
hungry.
Yes.
Yung iba nga, they don't even know how to pronounce sinigang.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sinigang, yes.
Adobo. But
Yeah.
I don't blame them kasi
Mhm.
right when they came here, they got so busy doing the American way.
Yeah.
It's only now, lalo na during COVID, when they had the time. Wow. Ang dami kong pwedeng i-research. And that
Yeah.
consciousness came in. And you came in again at the very right time. So, ang galing.
But is that changing? Is that changing? Kasi 'di ba a lot of the younger generation before na Philams, they don't like to be called Filipinos or Philams. They want to be American. Is that changing in the new generation ba?
I think so. Yeah, I believe so. I see the changes with the youth that they used to work with, or the youth around us in our communities around Davis and Sacramento. I see the more eagerness for them to learn more about being Filipino and embrace it. I actually see more people wearing barongs nowadays. I see a lot more people wearing the malong when they graduate. Actually, people who, always wear a lot of students now when they graduate in college dito sa California. I see them wearing malongs, the way UP would wear their sablay, to show that like, hey, we're also Filipino. Yeah, yun nga, they a lot of people are embracing their roots and identities. Even sa mga jewelry, nakikita ko sa Instagram, marami ng mga small businesses na nagde-design ng mga jewelry na Filipino inspired, na Filipino designs, lalo na yung sun, Filipino sun. So I can see that there's what do you call this? There's a really big push for them to embrace more of their Filipino roots. And then it helps na meron na tayong sa stresses sa mainstream, sa Netflix and other, we're becoming more visible.
And communicable. It became, naging communicative tayo. We were enabled by multimedia. So,
Yeah.
like, I can always switch on to Kirby and then research. May mga tanong. What do you think? Okay, when did this happen? And then when you tell the story, then it's more interesting for me and I get it right away.
Thank you.
So it's unbelievable to listen to history, not based on a book where there are just dates, but with the story. Like you said, pag dinadala ka ng lola mo sa church, pati yung structure ng church, interesting, di ba?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Like yung sinasabi nila, the adobe, dinikit by using egg whites.
Yeah.
True.
That was true, yes.
Yun.
Galing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Siguro Kirby, yun, nawala. Nakita ko Harvard. You graduated from Harvard ba sa likod?
I studied, yes. I studied, let me switch the camera. Medyo nagloloko na naman siya. Yan. Hello, I'm back. So I did study at Harvard for my graduate studies. I started it, but I actually took a break from it when I started working for the University of California, when we opened the Bolosan Center for Filipino Studies a few years ago. Yeah, and actually my plan was actually to go back to finish it this 2020, to start, or to how to explain it. So I started it a few years ago, 2015 actually, when I started at Harvard, and then 2018 or 17 I took a break to help open the Filipino Study Center sa University of California, and then my plan was to restart or like continue my studies at Harvard in 2020, but then that was right before the pandemic when I planned that, and then pandemic happened. So like, okay, I don't think I can actually manage it for now.
And history pa rin yan. Graduate studies.
So history, yes.
Wow. Galing, Nancy.
Yes. So yung mga, Anton, what do you think your kids, your teenage kids now?
No, I think one of the main reason na I wanted to talk to Kirby nga kasi the younger kids just watch YouTube or TikTok, 'di ba?
Yeah.
So they get all their story from there, and I was worried, watching if they watch like history about Philippines from somebody who people is not rooted on the story. So that's why I'm very happy to met Kirby in one of the interview, and at least people can show it, and it's evident in your statistics naman that a lot of Filipinos are starting to learn.
Yeah.
Parang the other way around, going to your channel.
Yeah.
I don't think it's being used in the educational system here yet, diba? But I think for people who are interested to know more about roots, do you do TikTok then, ba? Like TikTok history shorts?
Not yet. People have been telling me, but I haven't done it yet. Yeah.
Oo, kasi that's also one of the sources of the youth, or the Gen Z, and even the younger ones.
Yes.
So and parang to see somebody parang being proud, wearing malong, talking about this Chris and stuff, is really encouraging for the next generation of Filipinos, diba? What do you think, Nance?
Well, especially for I wouldn't say minority, but for the Muslims, the Muslim Filipinos, ngayon na lang natin nalalaman yung kanilang history. Like that bronze plate with your swords, that's Muslim ba?
Actually, funny thing, I actually found this dito sa US. Like, oh, that looks like the stuff that we have back at home. Yeah.
So, hindi ba ngayon, because halal and Muslims is a very big population now. So, our brothers are slowly sharing their history. Kasi parang noon, taboo.
Yeah.
To meet them, or that's why we don't know our own Muslim brothers. Pero ngayon, konti-konti, they're also speaking up.
Yeah.
Like yung sa Quiapo, that was a forbidden city to Christians. I don't know until now, but when I went in to do some research on food, we had to wear the ano yun? Yung ganon.
Yeah, the hijab.
And that was the only time. So when you had to enter into their history and then from there go, hindi ka pwede na, oy, ano ako taga Manila ako pupunta ako sa Pampanga, wag niyo akong anuhan ng Pampanga food, Manila to, yung mga ganon. Wala na yun Among the youth, I think walang ganon. So that's good.
All right. Maybe last question on my end, Kirby. Kasi nga, I think the Spaniards, parang pinag-away-away niya tayo, di ba? Parang that was ingrained to us for a long time. And then the US came in also, and parang imperial Hollywood naman, di ba? Na anything is good, and the American dream. So the Filipino is, what do you think is the key for the Filipino to really shine out, out of, really embrace our own, and the key to Filipino greatness? What do you think?
Every question, Anton.
Yeah, I know, it's a good question. For me, a big part of it is really digging deeper sa roots natin, sa history natin, and our heritage na beyond the Spanish heritage, beyond the colonial period in the Philippines. Kasi we were great before then. Our islands were known. We were great people. We have a great culture, or different cultures. And actually, one thing I want to share too is that we even though there's a lot of differences, there's a lot of divisions, we actually share a lot more than what divides us. And we just need to dig deeper to realize that. For example, there are things in Kapampangan culture that I grew up with that was just Kapampangan, and I talked to like my friends in Mindanao, and they have the same exact culture. Na iba lang yung tawag nila, yung ganon. So we have a lot of things that we share with one another more than that divides us. Na I think the key to our greatness is really to embrace our roots, or to dig deeper and embrace our roots beyond what's just taught to us during colonialism. And that's not to say that we should ignore the colonial period of our history, because that's also a big part of our history, a big part of who we are today. But really to just, embrace all of it. And, or for me, it's like to embrace, not just simply embracing the good parts of it, but also learning from the bad parts of it. Then,
That's right. That's the way. I think that's a very global generational way of looking at it now. That the kids of Anton will buy rather than memorize this date on
yes,
March 16, 1521, ganon. Kaya nga si ano sino yung kumanta nun, di ba? He put it in a song form and then it clicked. So ngayon,
oh, yeah,
alam na nila lahat yung date na yun.
yeah.
All right. We have a comment here from Maria Cristina Macapagal. That's right, ma'am. I'm from North Mindanao, and you have so much to share with regards to our history here. Thanks,
Yeah.
Anton, for doing this. Yeah, I think that's really the key, and that's why we wanted to have this discussion also with you. Wow, sobrang I'm so inspired with
Salamat.
your advocacy, Kirby. Congratulations. Nancy, any final thoughts or questions?
Continue, and especially food. People don't really know much about the history of
Yeah.
food. With adobo, I learned from Felice that adobar, it
Mhm.
also means to treat or to coat or to
Yeah.
dress the meat, which means to preserve it also, and as well as favoring it.
Yeah.
Sabi naman ng iba yung kare-kare, iba yun, saan galing yun? From the curry, from the sepoys in Cavite or mga ganon.
Yeah.
So marami, very interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
you can join the band of
Yes.
Yeah. At saka hindi ba lahat ng famous food historian are Kapampangan? Hindi ba ganun yan, Nance?
Hindi papayag ang mga Bulacan dyan.
Yeah. Marami,
Hindi papayag ang
pero
mga
not all.
Cavite dyan. Ako si Ige. Naku po, nakikinig yan. And then, more so, tahimik ang mga taga Cebu, pero ang lalim ng kanilang rin. Lalo na Iloilo. Because Iloilo had a very sugary background. Kaya pati yung halo-halo nila, matamis na, lalagyan pa nila ng asukal.
Sure.
Yung mga ganon. So, no one says of the characters. That is exactly the meaning of the DNA. It's a very complicated complicated story of Philippines.
Yes.
And Mark said Filipino history needs a very good visual reference, not old ways from reading and telling. Correct. And that's why it's a YouTube channel. So maybe final thoughts, Kirby, or if you can talk to the next generation or the parents, what do you want to tell them about being proud of our Filipino history and culture?
For me, one advice I have for the younger generation is to talk to your parents, to your grandparents if they're still around, to your elders in your families. Talk to them about their life, what their experiences were, especially sa mga nasa diaspora dito sa US. Talk to them how they got here, how your family got here, the struggles they went through to have a better life in the US and even in the Philippines. Talk to your elders, because that's how I started. And for me, if we don't document the stories of our families, our own elders, then no one's gonna document it for us. So for me, like if we don't tell our own stories, then no one's gonna tell our own stories. And that's how we lose a lot of our histories. That's how we lose the memories of our elders. Kung walang nagdo-document, kung hindi natin sila tinatanong. So for me, really, talk to your elders while they're still around. Na minsan kasi marami rin naman sa mga elders natin na ayaw magkwento, pero konting push lang magkakwento yung mga yan. Yeah. Yeah.
Oo nga. No, I wanted to ask nga, tip nga, kasi I was asking my parents about it. Sabi na, ayoko na yan. Masyado kang madrama, ganyan, di ba? Magdadasal na lang ako. So how do you ask them to tell the story?
Depende sa parents or grandparents. But one way, an example for me kasi my grandparents in LA, when I had my partner, when she first visited my grandma's house in LA, she was the one who was asking the questions I want to ask. So since bago siya, so mas open sila magkwento sa kanya. So like, I learned things that I did not learn if she didn't ask them. Yeah.
I think may mga trigger yan eh.
Yeah.
Pagkain, while you're eating, mga suot.
Yeah.
Ano yung paineta mo, Lola?
Yeah.
Pictures. Ano to? Bakit ganyan ang suot nyo? Totoo ba na yung mga matatanda nun, pag magwiwiwi, tatayo na lang sa bangketa, tapos, sorry, Anton, siya ka ba? Tapos biglang, ganun ang kwento ng lola ko eh. Yung mga matatanda nun, yung during the early 1900s. Ang mga lola natin, gaganon lang nila ng konti yung palda, tapos, you know? So, may mga ganung nuances na trigger mo yun, hindi mo nang tuloy-tuloy yung kwento. Which is exactly what Doreen Fernandez said. Oral history is very valuable.
Yes.
And that's actually probably what you're doing.
Thank you.
Which is
so
people listen.
Yeah. So I guess that's another advice I have for the younger generation. And along with what I said earlier, value our oral histories, our oral traditions from our families. Kasi when people think of history, people think like, yung mga important dates, important people lang yung importante sa history. But no, history is really about all of us, all of our stories. Actually, it's a gold mine for historians to find a diary from like someone who lived in the past. Kasi kung kung na-record nila yung mga experiences sila yung ganon. So for me, I hope the younger generation would value our oral traditions, our oral histories equally as they value the written records. Kasi sadly, sa Pilipinas, sadly, our histories are usually like hindi nakasulat, hindi totoo. But if you study our culture, we're more for the most part of our history, we're passing it down orally. So for me, value the oral traditions, value the oral histories from our elders, from our own families, equally as we value the written records. For me, kasi for example, they may not get the exact details right sa mga oral traditions, but the core of the story, the value, the lessons are there. Yeah. So talk to your parents and lolas and lolas.
I think as long as you keep people curious, they will keep asking.
Yeah.
Galing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kirby. Thank you, Nancy.
Salamat din.
Yeah. So inspiring discussion.
Marami pa kaming tatanong sa'yo.
Sige.
Sa channel mo.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.